Hi, everyone. Welcome back to part 2 of the lecture. We're going to talk about psychological impacts, and then we're going to move into health concerns and things that we should be aware of for adolescents. Thinking about psychological impacts, there are some things that we know to be true about adolescence. It's typically a period where there's a lot more moodiness, and there's some impacts around parent-child relationships and how those change as well. That's a changing dynamic. So let's talk about moodiness first. We know moodiness from our brain development already from our previous lecture that there's an increase in hormones, and there's also this increase in intensity of experiencing stressful and pleasurable events, right? So that already leads to a likelihood that we're going to be more moody. There's also a piece around culture, right? Thinking back to how we approach puberty, culture is a big piece of that. And there also might be some implications around cultural scripts that influence how moody an adolescent can be. And this idea, a cultural script being, what do we expect adolescents to be like? What are we supposed to be doing during that time period? For example, if we believe that all adolescents or teenagers are out at parties on Friday or Saturday night, and we are not a teenager that is out or invited out on a Friday night or a Saturday night, then that is going to lead to us feeling more lonely than we normally would have because we have this cultural expectation of what we should be doing. So, two things right there kind of lead to the moodiness, the cultural piece and also the biology piece around just our hormones and how we're experiencing the world. Another element that changes is our parent child relationships during this time. We typically experience a lot of tension between parents and adolescents. There's a couple reasons that this happens. One reason is because in adolescence, we're really going through this period of wanting to take on more responsibility, wanting to be treated like an adult, and also not really having all of those planning and impulse abilities from our prefrontal cortex. So there's this push and pull with parents trying to protect us and us wanting to take on more responsibility. And the other piece would become from an evolutionary perspective. And the thinking would be that there's this tension that exists because psychologically we're trying to distance ourselves to discourage sexual relationships within the family. So that's an evolutionary perspective. And we do know that there are more tension between girl and mom relationships, and there's some kind of rationale for this or possibilities. One of them being that girls mature and go through puberty sooner than boys, so there's more opportunity for tension because there's a longer time period for maturation. And then also because tend to have more restrictions, and this is a societal thing as well, right? A societal construct. Now let's talk a little bit about timing, how those impact puberty. So we think about physical attractiveness. Specifically, what I want to talk to you about is children who mature earlier. So our earlier maturing girls are going to be more anxious and withdrawn versus our boys are going to be more independent and viewed more as being attractive. We also know that girls that mature earlier tend to have a poorer body image. And the problem with this is that when you have a poor body image, that's directly linked to your self-esteem. So you're going to have a lower self-esteem. We also know that early maturing boys and girls are less likely to feel like they fit in with their peers of their same age. And when they feel less likely to fit in with the peers of their same age, they're going to start seeking out other places to fit in, most likely with older peers. And what happens with that is that can lead to problems with sexual activity or substance abuse. So a lot of things that can happen around this time period. Okay. Now with that, let's go ahead and take a look at our health issues. We'll jump in and we'll start talking about nutrition first off. So we know that during this time period, girls require about 1,800 to 2,400 calories, and boys require about 2,400 to 3,200 calories. Here's the problem, though, is this time period we see a lot of nutrition go down for a multitude of reasons. The first being that they eat on the go. There's a lot of moving and going. We know that we see this big decrease in mid-childhood, about 9 to 14, where kids stop eating with their parents, and that continues to happen. They're eating on the go. And when they eat on the go and they're feeding themselves, they're more likely to consume empty calories. Along with this, because they're not eating healthy foods, we start seeing deficiencies in iron, calcium, vitamin B2, and magnesium. We also see increase in participation in fad diets, especially with girls who are trying to fit societal expectations. And when we participate in a fad diet, we're also decreasing our nutrition and how much we're able to get from our food. However, there are some exceptions to keep in mind for nutrition going up. We know that vegetarians are more likely to have healthy diets. And of course, reinforcing that idea that when you eat as a family, if you can, it's more likely to support a healthy diet and healthy eating and nutritional habits. Now, with that, let's talk about the extreme of not getting nutrition, and that is eating disorders. The first one I want to talk to you about is anorexia nervosa, and that is starving self out of fear of gaining weight. This happens because the people who are anorexic tend to have a distorted body image. It affects 1% of adolescents. they tend to lose about 25 to 50% of their body weight. 5% of these children who are anorexic will end up eventually dying from related causes. It causes pale skin, brittle bones, a sensitivity to cold. It will eventually lead to kidney failure. It can have brain damage and irreversible loss of bone mass. What's interesting here, culturally speaking, or rather ethnicity speaking, is African Americans are less likely to be impacted by anorexia just because they tend to have higher body image perceptions. Now, let's talk about bulimia nervosa. That is binge eating and then deliberately vomiting, purging with laxative, excessive exercise, or fasting. It can cause damage to the throat and to the stomach. And we see this for girls and also bisexual and gay boys. It's about 2 to 4% of adolescents, so it's higher than anorexia, but still only 2 to 4%, which is significant. And the last one I want to talk to you about is binge eating disorder. And this is eating large amounts of food. It affects 2 to 3% of girls and about 1% of boys and adolescents. It typically leads to just being overweight or an obese. I shouldn't say just, but it leads to being overweight and obese. Okay, moving forward out of eating disorders, let's talk about campus support. I want everybody to be aware of the things that are available for you on campus. We have the Student Health and Wellness Center. You can go and make an appointment to see a therapist. So if you are somebody who's struggling with this or has struggled with it in the past, I encourage you to make sure you're getting the support you need. It's there for you. Use it if you need it, okay? It's very simple. You just click on it and it will take you to the website. You can schedule an appointment online. There's options to meet with somebody in person through text message. You can meet with a peer. Lots of great choices. All right, moving forward, let's talk about injuries. We know that significant amounts of injuries happen in car accidents. It's the leading cause of death for children 15 to 19. And this is because we're not wearing our seatbelts. We are driving under the influence. All of those things, we're being impulsive with our actions. That's all leading to an additional raise in those deaths. Firearms is another area to be concerned about. We know that 16% of adolescents report carrying a weapon in the last month. And this was a study done in 2018. 5% of that 16% is carrying a firearm. That's a pretty significant amount of children who don't have prefrontal cortexes fully developed carrying a weapon on themselves. And the last one I want to talk to you about around injuries is athletics. So we know that when you participate in sports, you're more likely to get bruises and muscle strains and concussions really leading to some long-term implications around cognitive functioning if they're not caught, especially if we have repeated exposures to concussions. Okay, we're going to take a quick break here. We'll come back. We're going to talk about sexuality and all the things that are involved with that topic. All right, I'll see you then.